Interpreters, you can start recording your rooms.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education business meeting. Today's Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. The time is now 7:02 p.m. Before we start the meeting, if anybody has signed up for public comments, the form is, I believe, in the hall on the table. And anybody online, if you could please raise your hands at this time so that they can start collecting your names. Thank you. And if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For attendance with me this evening, I have Howard White, Ashley Bullion, Janine Randolph is on her way. She's a little late, but she should be stepping in momentarily. Kara Bakey, Sherry McCready Pritchett, Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, Jasmine Pressey, and I don't see Colin online yet. I can't tell. Okay, no Colin Hostin at this time. And I'm going to transfer the meeting over to Mrs. Bakey to do the spotlight for the evening.
Thank you, Chairwoman Carpio. So we have 3 spotlights this evening, and this is the first one. Women's History Month 2025. The Norwalk Board of Education is proud to recognize March as Women's History Month. This is a time to recognize, celebrate, and honor the achievements and contributions of women throughout history and their impact on the United States and the world. Women have played a pivotal role in shaping societies, advancing education, and fostering innovation across all fields. Their contributions have gone unrecognized, making it essential to ensure their stories are told and celebrated. Women's History Month began as a local celebration in Santa Rosa, California in 1978 and gained national recognition in 1980 when President Jimmy Carter declared the week of March 8th as National Women's History Week. In 1987, it expanded into a month-long observance honoring the vital achievements of women across generations. The 2025 national theme, Moving Forward Together, Women Educating Inspiring Generations, highlights the essential role of women as educators, mentors, and leaders. From classrooms to boardrooms, grassroots movements to global initiatives, women have driven change, nurtured minds, and changed the future. Norwalk Public Schools is committed to fostering an inclusive institutional environment that recognizes and honors the diverse achievements of women. Educating students about the resilience, leadership, and innovation of women throughout history empowers them to advocate for equity, pursue knowledge, and embrace their own limitless potential. By declaring Women's History Month, the Norwalk Board of Education encourages all schools, educators, teachers, and community members to participate in programs, discussions, and activities to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of women, past, present, and future. Right, moving on to our second spotlight. Groton Middle School girls and West Rocks Middle School boys win middle school basketball championships. The Norwalk Board of Education. Oh. There they are.
Yeah, they can line up here.
Watch the wires.
Yeah. Boys are here too.
Come on in.
Come on in.
All right. The Norwalk Board of Education wishes to congratulate the Groton Middle School girls basketball team and the West Rocks Middle School boys basketball team for winning the middle school basketball championships in February. The Rhoton girls took down Nathan Hale Middle School in an exciting game, bringing home the 2025 Middle School Girls Basketball Championship title. Both teams showed amazing teamwork, effort, and sportsmanship. Go Rams! West Rocks boys won the 2025 Middle School Boys Basketball Championship title in dramatic fashion. With just 8 seconds left, West Rocks raced down the court, found Dion Brown, and boom, nothing but net. West Rocks took the lead 45-44 to finish an incredible game by both West Rocks and Honus Ridge STEAM Academy. A special thank you to our dedicated coaches for their time and willingness to volunteer, school staff for encouraging and supporting our student athletes, and families for everything you do to make these opportunities possible for your kids. The commitment from all of you makes this success possible.
You want to do a picture, Dr.? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, how about we just, I think we'll do the girls and the boys. We'll do them separately. Okay, okay. All right, guys.
Some of y'all.
Yeah.
There we go.
And the coach.
Come on.
Let me see. I'll try. Hold on, I'm so done. Okay, I'm. Oh, right, so. Okay, good, okay. All right, girls, thank you. Congratulations. Okay. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect, all right. That's okay.
That's my boss.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just like share that with me.
Congratulations.
Bye, guys. Last but not least, Norwalk High School girls wrestling wins New England championships. The first girls program in Connecticut to win regional tournaments. The Norwalk Board of Education wishes to congratulate the Norwalk High School girls wrestling team who made history earlier this month, becoming the first girls program in Connecticut to win the New England championships. That's huge. This incredible achievement highlights the program's rapid growth, expanding from just 2 girls 4 years ago to a dedicated team of 8 today, a testament to their hard work, commitment, and unwavering dedication. Leading the charge is senior Riley Donahue, whose accomplishments have set a high standard for future generations.
And then take pictures.
As the first ever girl named captain of the Norwalk High School wrestling team, Riley has been instrumental in the program's success. Over her career, she has consistently demonstrated excellence, recording a standout senior season with 26 wins. Her leadership and resilience have inspired her teammates, contributing to the team's historic success. She recently told Norwalk High School's Bear News, having grown up wrestling with a bunch of boys and seeing more and more girls give wrestling a try has been a cool experience. Two of those girls are sophomores, Jilly Ucida and senior Lena Rodriguez, who have also made their mark on the program. Jilly, in just her first year on the team, has already secured 10 wins, proving she's a rising star in Norwalk wrestling. Lena, a dedicated senior, has battled through competition with a strong 59% winning percentage, helping to solidify the team's success. Their efforts, alongside Riley's leadership, have been crucial in making this championship dream a reality. Thank you to the incredible coaching staff, Athletic Director Doug Marchetti, and Principal Dr. Lynn Moore. Your dedication, belief, and support for these girls have made this all possible. In a sport that has not always been friendly to female participation, your commitment to fostering an inclusive and thriving program has paved the way for these athletes to succeed. You've clearly built something special here, not only a championship team, but also opening doors for future generations of female wrestlers in Norwalk.
Come on up, ladies. Congratulations.
Make sure Dr. Moore can get up here.
Let's get in the back. Pictures. All right.
You gotta get in there.
Yeah.
Back over here.
Look at all the cameras at once. Yeah.
Focus on my way.
I'll get one of you in line. Okay.
1, 2, 3, Norwalk High.
It's real hard.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice job, ladies. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now it's okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ladies, nice job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very proud of you. Well done. No problem, Nikki. Good job. Bye.
Great job.
Thank you.
Wait 1 second.
It's okay.
We've now reached the public comment section of the meeting.
She also said a motion to.
There's a typo on the agenda. I need to set a motion to add in the second section, letter C for updates under student transportation. I can have a motion to change, well, to add that to the agenda as a correction. Add that. Janine, seconded by Mary Ellen. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Good evening, everyone. We've reached the public comment section of our meeting, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any email comments will be entered into the record. And when you come up, please state your address. Name and address. First person I have is Mary Jordan.
Looking for the microphone. Mary Jordan, 9 Mott Avenue. Speaking on behalf of the Norwalk Public Schools Union Coalition. As a follow-up on our statement on budget cuts. Of the members of the coalition are here. We, the educators and staff of Norwalk Public Schools, are committed to supporting our students and their families. Our banner, music and arts programs, counseling program in all buildings, and staff in many roles in all bargaining units fulfill the needs of our students in many various ways every day. Yet the proposed budget cuts threaten to dismantle the very programs and services that provide stability, opportunity, and excellence. Tonight, we demand your attention to what's truly at stake. These cuts are not numbers on a spreadsheet, as you know. They represent the loss of vital student support, the erosion of regular education staff that help to support special education, and the weakening of high-quality programs that set our district apart. We came to you asking for prioritization of building budgets and student-facing programs. The rubber meets the road in schools. The point of contact with the child is the school building. The real work happens here. Relationships, rapport, the instruction, the one-on-one interactions, the team effort of all the employees who support the various interactions with that child. Yet despite our interactions, despite our advocacy, we do not feel heard. Instead, we have waited, watched, listened as cuts continue without meaningful dialogue or strategic vision. Where are the probing questions from board members about the impact of the cuts? How will we serve our most vulnerable students in the face of drastic reductions in schools? We know that when classrooms hit maximum capacity, individualization of instruction dramatically reduces. Did you understand that to be the outcome here? What will be the long-term effects of dismantling our stellar music and arts programs, programs that even the private schools struggle to match, programs that reflect the diversity of our student body at this point, but perhaps not for long after the cuts are implemented? They are not just budget lines. They are the future of our students and the careers of dedicated educators. The choices being made do not reflect priorities because there are no clear priorities set by the Board of Education. In times of surplus, central office dictated aspects of staffing decision, yet in times of cuts, building leaders are left to fend for themselves, competing against one another with no consistent standard for reductions. This approach lacks equity, transparency, and responsibility. Enough is enough. Stop blaming the Common Council. This is a failure of leadership. Poor planning has led to a crisis where students will be paying the price, but central office will continue to be well staffed. When will you demand a budget?
Sure, and your time is up.
How are you ensuring that Norwalk Public Schools remain a place where all students, regardless of background, have access to the education they deserve? Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The time to act is now.
Thank you. Is Bob Klein, please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Bob Klein and I reside at 274 Richards Avenue. Our educators and staff in each of the Norwalk Public Schools are unwavering in their commitment to the children they serve. Every day, they work tirelessly to create an environment where students are supported, challenged, and given the tools they need to succeed. The dedicated staff in every building contributes to the well-being and growth of our students. However, the vital services and programs that these educators provide are now under threat. I sit before you tonight to remind you that the task of each person who has direct contact with students is not just to collect data, teach to a standardized test, or recite the objective of a lesson. These individuals build rapport with their students, show genuine interest in each child's life, offer words of encouragement, provide smiles, demonstrate empathy, and understand how each child learns individually. Some proposed cuts will result in the loss of crucial support for our students, which will undermine the very foundation of what makes Norwalk Schools a place where students are given the tools to succeed, grow, and pursue their dreams. We are asking for a clear prioritization of the programs that directly impact the lives of our children. The work that happens in our school is about more than just meeting academic standards. It's about building relationships, providing emotional support, and creating an environment where each child feels seen, heard, and valued. Budget cuts seem to continue without a meaningful discussion about the consequences they will have on our children. Will individualized instruction continue when classrooms are at their maximum capacity and beyond? What will be the lasting impact on our students' future when high-quality programs like music and the arts, programs that help children discover their passions and build confidence, are dismantled? These aren't just budget cuts. They are threats to the futures of our children. Every decision you make has a direct effect on them, and their futures deserve better. In times of surplus, decisions about staffing and resources were made centrally, but in times of need, schools are left to struggle with no clear guidance. This inequity leaves our children at risk with no consistent strategy for how to protect their education. The children of Norwalk deserve better. I call on you to step up and ensure that our students' needs are met before all else. It is time to demand a budget that puts the child first. Please prioritize any budget cuts for Norwalk Public Schools that affect our children, the programs that foster the love of learning, and the staff who have direct contact with children. Thank you.
Miss Amanda Trimboli, please state your name and address.
Hello, members of the BUE and Dr. Estrella. My name is Amanda Trimboli, and I live at 12 Cider Lane. I'm here to speak tonight about the operational budget and what's in store for all our schools right now. I have just recently found out that the school my kids go to has to cut approximately $450,000 from their school budget. And after asking around, it seems this number is pretty standard for other schools in the district as well. When I heard this, I was angry and heartbroken. This is an impossible feat for a small elementary school, and one that can have a lasting negative impact. I'm a substitute teacher in my kids' school, and being there almost every day, I see how incredibly valuable teachers and staff are in the building. Even cutting one person from that building will throw off the whole dynamic of each day. I ask the BOE to please carefully scrutinize the operational budget line by line so we can get rid of anything that isn't a true necessity or helping the district in any way. I realize this takes a lot of work, but it's imperative that you don't put teachers' jobs on the line or resort to cutting important programs for our schools because the negative impacts of this will be too large. I am also here to advocate for the capital budget. Although the BOE has put together a proposed capital budget that is less than last year, I see that further cuts must still be made. I ask that BOE also carefully scrutinize the capital budget line by line and to fund essential facilities needs such as asbestos and electrical upgrades. These facilities upgrades will ensure that our students are healthy and are able to learn in an environment that is conducive to learning. I think it would be a really good idea and a great experience for the BOE and Common Council members to take some time and go to the schools for a whole day and observe what goes on. Do that for a whole week. You need to truly see how the schools function day to day and how valuable each and every staff member is for our kids. And going forward, there needs to be more discourse with all of you and the public. Maybe holding quarterly Q&As with parents so we can have conversation instead of us sitting in front of you upset and never hearing a response to our public comments. That would be a great way to connect with parents and to gain our trust. We need to know that you are hearing our concerns and doing something about it. At the end of the day, we all voted you in your elected positions to protect our children's education. You must do everything you can to ensure that this holds true. Thank you.
Movitz.
Hi, my name is Jamie Morvis.
I'm sorry, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jamie Morvis, 11 Katie Lane. and I'm a parent of a kindergartner at Wolf Pit Integrated Art School. We got in via the lottery, and I was overjoyed thinking about the arts focus at the school and how it would support my daughter's interests and learning. However, I'm worried now that potential cuts to staff, whether paraprofessionals, coaches, nurses, assistant principal, or teachers, will hinder my daughter's learning, as well as that of other students. Each role is so integral to maintaining the small class sizes, art integration, healthy kids, and more. If any of these staff end up being cut, I am very interested to know how the BOE plans to remedy the negative effects they will have. Regarding the capital budget, I would be very concerned about sending my daughter to school if it does not get the asbestos abatement it needs. In addition, not only will the asbestos abatement help protect our children and teachers' health, but it will allow us to get the HVAC system so that students don't need to miss out on learning due to it being too hot. I know the budget has a limit, and ultimately cuts will need to be made, but I hope they are not cuts that are at the expense of our innocent growing children. Thank you.
Alan? Please state your name and address.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Callan. I live at 5 Margaret Street. And I've been there since 2022 when my husband and 2 kids came in from Manhattan seeking refuge from Manhattan. I had kind of a hard day today. I don't know about you guys, but it's a hard place to be a grown-up these days. Kids or no kids, it's hard being a grown-up. So these are some thoughts that I wrote driving home from my job on Long Island. In my family, we have 2 full-time jobs and 3 part-time jobs. So I wrote these with my digital voice to text, so forgive me if there are typos. Children are our infrastructure. They are our future citizens. They will be taking care of us. At a time that is so difficult for so many of us and for so many adults, believe me when I say the children are leading. And the children are bringing home lessons of self-worth, acceptance, values, and community that we are not getting elsewhere. Our children are teaching us. There is magic happening in these schools. At a time when we need this more than ever, our children are leading the way from inside our homes because of the beautiful lessons learned by being part of these ecosystems, which will be disrupted by these cuts. The core teachers can't do it all, and it's unfair to ask them to. Support teachers provide a consistent presence to each of our children that they are important and that we take care of each other, even if our students don't receive special or additional services. This last fall, I was the coach for my son's soccer team here in Norwalk, a kaleidoscope of kids, languages, and cultures representing several Norwalk elementary schools. On one particular game day, one of the younger boys, a kindergartner, was having a hard time. He had courage to be there with us, but he could not stop crying. This group of kindergarten and first grade boys looked at him, wondering what to do, so we huddled up. I said something about friendship, about being a team, and that it's okay if one of us is sad. And then one of the boys looked up and said, as simply as could be, with conviction that still brings me tears, "We care about each other." This is what social emotional learning initiatives and teachers and coaches do for our communities. These kids are in the homes of many Norwalk residents, but they play on the streets of everyone in your town. They go shopping with their parents. They go to dinner at the restaurants. They play in the park alongside retirees walking their dogs. This is our community. We look at infrastructure. What helps us travel safely from one place to another? Roads, bridges. The connection that our children are making about being citizens and
Thank you,
community
Ms. Allen. Your
members.
time is up.
This is the infrastructure that we need to invest in. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are people online, but like I said, we announced earlier for them to raise their hand. I don't see any hands raised at all.
Okay.
For public comment.
Okay, so that concludes as a.
There is one. So, Alex, we'll open up the floor for you to talk. Go ahead, Alex.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm not seeing any way to turn on my video, but I just wanted to say my name is Alexis McCarthy. I live at 35 Fox Run Road. I won't take up too much of your time. I know everyone's had a long day, a long evening. And I'm just going to echo some of the other statements that have been made. I agree wholeheartedly with them. Right now, we're in tough times. We're seeing in real time the impact of an or undereducated population, and Norwalk has been a great leader in bringing wonderful programming to our schools. Jobs in our buildings, our elementary buildings where I have 2 children, these are crucial jobs. Programs in these buildings are crucial programming. And I volunteer in my kids' school. I watch how each and every teacher and staff member pitches in around the building, whether it's their job or not. They get down on the floor with a kid who's having a hard day. They jump in and help when someone else needs to run, something else. They really work as a team. And I just ask that all the members of the Board of Education and Dr. Estrella, again, thank you for all that you do. I ask that you prioritize all these child-facing personnel and programs. Thank you so much.
So that concludes public comments. Thank you. And I went over to the chair. Ms. Carpio.
Thank you. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, and I will transfer the meeting to Dr. Alexander Estrella.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off the superintendent report with the Arthur Miller Foundation partnership. They are here to share some highlights and celebrations around theater work across our school. So you're good? So Mr. Pennington and Rob and Jay alongside, and Jay, can you?
I'm just
I'm just gonna ask you guys to please introduce yourselves before you begin.
So Rob Pennington, Assistant Superintendent of Schools.
Jake Gerlach, Director of Grants for Norwalk Public Schools.
And Janie Slavens from the Arthur Miller Foundation.
So I'm going to just start with a brief conversation. Jake Gerlach was a theater teacher at Nathan Hale Middle School before taking on the Director of Grants role. Shortly after he took on the role, he came and started having conversations with me around professional development. And currently we have 7 theater teachers in our district and 1 dance teacher, and professional development on district days. How can we create opportunities for personalized professional development? Because everybody needs something different. Everybody needs something special. And so we've partnered with Westport Playhouse, and we've got different opportunities throughout, but really trying to build a robust professional learning opportunity for our theater teachers. And then over the summer this year, Jay comes over to me and he says, I have an idea. I think that this is a great opportunity. Would you be interested in meeting to learn more about it? And he said, absolutely, Jay. I think that this is great. So we met, we had a conversation, and what you're going to hear is the culmination of that. And it's my absolute favorite word. It is free. So I just want to make sure to share that piece, because I do think that the experience that our theater and dance teacher has been able to participate in this year is really special. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jay and Janie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yes, as Rob mentioned, I spent 17 years as a classroom teacher, as a theater teacher in New York City Public Schools and in Norwalk. And I think it's quite wonderful that we're here tonight, because March is actually National Theater in Our Schools Month. And I do want to highlight and honor the fact that Norwalk does have a robust arts program. We have a robust theater program. And really to the credit of our superintendent, Dr. Estrella, she truly believes in the arts, and as an arts educator and advocate, it means the world when we see, to me and my fellow colleagues, because we see arts programs being cut, and we've really held on to our arts programming. So I'm very grateful. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jamie Slavens. She is from the Arthur Miller Foundation, and she'll talk about this partnership.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the board for welcoming us tonight. And thank you, Dr. Estrella and Ms. Fayes and Mr. Pennington and Mr. Gerlach for all of this lovely collaboration on our program. So I'm delighted to be representing the Arthur Miller Foundation as our Connecticut program manager and celebrating our partnership. We do this work in the name of Arthur Miller, a great American playwright, and this quote really speaks to a lot of our work here. And I want to just highlight this idea of nowhere is human possibility, I think, clearer than in a public school theater classroom. And we have the great joy of supporting that work. We're honored to do this work in the name of Arthur Miller, who was the product of public schools himself. So we believe at the Arthur Miller Foundation that arts education is a right, not a privilege. And by supporting schools and teachers in their theater education pursuits, we seek to build the next generation of empathetic, confident, collaborative kids who will lead us into the future. Founded over 10 years ago in New York City, we're thrilled to be in collaboration with Norwalk starting this year, which clearly has a district and a central office who support the arts. So we do this work through 4 main buckets of support. We offer mentorship to each of our theater teachers, cultural partner residencies, classroom resources, and theater tickets to professional shows for students and professional development. We always say there's a 5th silent unofficial bucket, which is a strong community of theater teachers gathering together and sharing ideas and wisdom. Beautiful. So mentorship, we consider the bedrock of our program. It is very unusual in the arts to have a discipline-specific teaching mentor in your school building. So we offer that through our program. These are veteran theater teachers, retired theater teachers, master teaching artists, paired with the teachers based on their needs, their skill sets. It's a really lovely matchmaking experience, and they come into the classrooms, observe them, reflect on their work, and help coach them through the next phase of their work together. Great. We also offer cultural partner residencies. These are really exciting opportunities to bring in arts organizations to work with Norwalk students and their theater teacher, their building level theater teacher. These are half-day workshops or multi-week workshops, depending on the structure and the ages of students. Past and current partners, just to name a few, include the Roundabout Theater Company, Hartford Stage, Sova Puppetry, the Strike Anywhere Performance Ensemble, and Westport Country Playhouse. We also offer direct physical resources in the form of classroom toolkits. Our year 1 and year 2 fellows get to select from this lovely list of physical toolkits. We also offer them classroom library, the variety of age-specific books and texts that will support their work, and theater tickets in that 3rd year of participation. And then EDTA membership, which is membership in the largest association of professional learning for theater teachers in our country. And then in professional development, which is a really exciting piece I know Mr. Pennington highlighted for us, but we grab the fellows a number of times per year, 2 or 3 times pending our schedule, for targeted professional development in theater. So for example, this fall, we spent a lovely day at Norwalk City Hall learning about the nuts and bolts of musical theater education and show building with iTheatrics, sort of the company that created the real structures that we use. The workshops align with the Norwalk Public School professional development schedule, so we use the teachers. And then just last week, we got to take your teachers to New York City for our intervisitation day, which was so much fun. So we took our teachers, your theater teachers, with us to New York to observe an alumni fellow of our program and see them in a classroom, actually teaching with reflection before and after. We got to see a Broadway show and have a great day of companionship and professional learning. So currently we are supporting 5 theater teachers and 3 other supplemental teachers as well. There are 5 here on this list. We're also offering supplemental support to Karina Varela, Christina Zangaglia, and Lisa Murray, in addition to Allison Cahill, Jagger Kugler, Charlie McAfee, Elizabeth Simmons, and Kristen Moorheit. And I will say these are all, you know this, but they're tremendous teachers. You are so lucky to have them in this space. And just to name, there is a way to add more. We are open and available to support additional theater teachers in Norwalk. The criteria for a full support is a certified theater teacher, and we can apply through us and talk to Mr. Gerlach about any of those things as they come up, but we're eager to continue supporting the great work of Norwalk.
Thank you. So just again, thank you for your support for the arts and arts education. I think it matters now more than ever. And we're very grateful for this partnership that we have with AML. Thank you.
So any question for? Any questions from the board or the team regarding this partnership?
Are we the only Fairfield County? Are there other districts?
We also support Bridgeport Public Schools. So those are our 2 districts in Fairfield County, and then New York City. So Connecticut is our first foray out of New York City after 10 years.
Did we track you down or did you find us?
A combination. We have some board members who are really invested in Connecticut and excited. And Arthur Miller himself had a long history as a Connecticut resident. So it was a natural next place for us to go.
Well, we are happy that it's a natural next place to go. Sounds wonderful. If I were a theater teacher, I would be right there on that list. Thank you for that encouragement. And did Rob say that this was free?
It is. Arthur Miller Foundation is a grassroots organization that fundraises for these efforts with some really dedicated board members and supporters who love this work and just believe in professional learning for teachers so that students get top quality education.
Exactly. And that is what we're all hoping, that the experience for the children will be top quality, world class.
Yeah.
And everything. It's thrilling. It's good for you to find it.
Well, I was just saying, Jay, credit to you for seeing that hole in professional development as a music teacher, obviously not in Norwalk, but as a music teacher, I've sat through my share of PPDs that did not really relevant to what I specifically do. So that's a great find.
Thank you.
So one of the things, when Jay was a teacher and coming earlier on in my time here in Norwalk, one of the things that was very evident was the lack of productive professional development for teachers in the arts. And in conversation with them, that was something that really resonated. So we really wanted to create differentiated experiences for them. And this is one of our partnerships that allows us to do that, because it's really important. If you look at our strategic plan, there's an emphasis in teacher and personnel development. Professional development is critical in obtaining better results for students. So this aligns with priorities and it amplifies the work that we do in service of teachers. So we're really excited for this. And I just want to highlight Jay's work, because this is just a little token. Incredible work he does in locating and researching different grants, supporting the district, not only in our state federal grants and maintaining those alongside other members of the finance team, but also looking for opportunities and constantly applying and actually being very successful in obtaining many of these grants and opportunities. So thank you for bringing free money at the district. So we really appreciate it, especially now more than ever.
Thank you for supporting the arts. Greatly appreciate it.
So currently you serving 5 schools, and I know you indicated you talked about this free. Is there a cap? And what if, others?
Let's keep talking. I don't know that there's a formal cap, right? It's a matter of how much interest there is and how many our full fellows are certified theater teachers. We're teaching theater in the school day. We're committed to that curricular piece. And so, let's, as we're happy to keep talking, right? As the district adds more of those positions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What show did y'all see last week?
Oh, what's?
Maybe happy
Oh, it's a
ending.
maybe happy ending.
Did you see it? No, it's on my list. Wonderful.
It was great, yeah.
Yeah.
I would just like to highlight that when we had that fabulous Black History Month presentation, I saw Jay in the background running around. And so all hands on deck. I mean, you write our grants and you jump in and, you know.
Direct help volunteer.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on this topic? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So the second item in the superintendent report is around student transportation services. We have an action item that ties to this piece. So for matter of efficiency, I'm just going to introduce the members of the team that are here. And when the action item comes up, then they can come up and provide some insight to the public and the board on this component. As you know, transportation costs across our region and the country have exponentially been increasing throughout the scope of the past several years. It's been really hard to staff and find personnel. We've been working with Durham for some time now, and they've been great partners. So I'm just gonna have Joanne introduce herself, your role, as well as the rest of the team that's here with you, if you don't mind.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Zambitter. I'm the transportation administrator for the school district. And I brought my team tonight. I'm proud to have them here. These are the people who service our students every single day and make sure that they are getting to school safely and on time. We have tonight with us Mr. Stephen Schmuck. He is the Vice President of East Coast Operations from New England to Florida. We have Benita Hargett, who is our General Manager, who sees the day-to-day operations. Kim Brown, who is our Operations Supervisor Dispatcher, guru of all. Joelle Colon Mercado, who is our Safety Supervisor. And Mr. Stephen Owens, who is our Shop Manager. We make sure that all our buses are up to code and inspection and make sure that we're safe. We could not do what we do every day without these individuals. And we're sleeves rolled up and answering the phone and, behind the wheel most of the time over the last 18 months, Benita, Tim, and Joelle. And they represent over 100 years of knowledge and experience in this industry. So I'm grateful to have them here today.
Thank you, Joanna, for the introduction. And I think I have to highlight that Joanna is our go-to and only person in central office in charge of all of the district's transportation. So she has an enormous task, and I always tell her I'm always scared, like checking she's okay. Because she's the only person we have managing such a big scope of work. So thank you for your commitment, even when you're sick, and making sure that our systems and buses are running. So we really appreciate you and what you do for in service of kids. So we will further engage in this conversation with the board when that agenda comes. The third piece that I want to provide an update, as you know, we've been engaged in the budget process now for a few months. And tomorrow we will have a conversation with the Board of Estimate and Taxation. It will be Thursday. I'm sorry. Thursday. Already thinking tomorrow's Thursday. On Thursday, we will have a conversation with BET where we will be speaking on behalf of our proposed budget. As you know, the Common Council set a recommended budget that places us right now at a 4% increase. It is not the request that we had put forward, and consequently, there are a number of reductions that we have to make system-wide. I think a number of times throughout the scope of our presentation, we have spoken about the fact that our system compromise of we're in the service of people, and in doing so, 85% of our budget is staff. And consequently, when we have to make a reduction of 5.7%, it inevitably means that we have to make significant staff reductions across the organization. And if you recall, one of the things that we did last year is come into this fiscal year at a deficit in special education in order to avoid laying off anyone from our schools. Particularly because throughout the scope of the past few years, special education costs have risen, facilities, maintenance costs, you name it, everything has gone up. And not necessarily at the rate in which we have been funded. We've also carried the cost of the year that we didn't get an increase. That also had an impact, and we were strategically using ARPA funds, looking at grant opportunities to avoid having to lay off staff, particularly in the midst of the pandemic. But we are at a point where reductions are inevitable, and we are forced to make sure that the budget that we come in for 25-26 is representative of the percentage increase that is provided. And inevitably, that will create cuts system-wide in central office, in schools, in services. Do we want this to happen? Absolutely not. All of the structures and systems that we've put in place are critical and essential to continue the important work that we do in service of our kids. Our staff have done a phenomenal job. We've seen the results of it. Our graduation rates have gone up. If we look at the work that we've done around social emotional learning, adding the additional counselors at the elementary school, adding additional providers at the middle schools when we saw that the pandemic had created some emotional challenges that were manifesting themselves in our discipline data. We work alongside Mid-Fairfield Guidance, as well as other partners, and brought in additional staff for support. Those grants have depleted. At the high school level, we've also strategically worked to provide additional supports. Unfortunately, these grant dollars have subsided, and coupled with that, we now have to face the reality that the city also has some fiscal challenges that they have to balance and navigate. So we will inevitably, and those conversations are already happening, making reductions across the organization. Mr. Osmani, alongside other members of the finance team, in collaboration with the executive leadership team, have been working strategically with principals and looking at their budget and really designing a plan of action. So I'm going to ask Mr. Osmani if you could join me for this component of the conversation, because it would be great just to provide the board with an update of the school-based budgeting process and where you are. I want to give a special thank you to Allison and Marianne, who have been working alongside Lunda and his team and making sure that principals have a thought partner as they were looking at their school-based budgets and working out their plan of action. So contrary to prior comments, principals have not been left alone through this process. They've been working alongside our executive leadership team, as well as our budget team, and looking at their school-based budgets and their allocation and what potential reductions need to be made in order for us to get to our 4% target, particularly because we want to make sure that schools that have unique programs can continue to maintain those programs. We have not created a one-size-fits-all model in terms of reductions. In the past, we had made strategic decisions around bringing additional school counselors, bringing additional interventionists and coaches universally across the organization because these were elements that were lacking. Yet there is variability amongst our schools based on their areas of focus and talent. And we want to make sure that principals have autonomy in terms of deciding how to make reductions in conversations with their SGCs that ensure as best as possible, because this is not an easy process, maintaining the integrity of the things that the community values most. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. This is not easy. We've been scrubbing through and working tirelessly at looking at how we can get to the 4%, but we still don't know if that's the final number because there's a number of approvals, like Mr. Osmani will speak to in greater detail, that are necessary. But it's no easy task. It's very heartbreaking. So I totally understand the parents in the room and your advocacy towards maintaining programs that we ourselves have been advocating for years and building so that our schools have the best personnel structure to meet the needs of students. And I think, as Jay said, we've been really committed in the arts and building programs in the arts. And it's really sad to see that there's a possibility that these programs in some instances might need to be reduced as a result of the fact that we have to get to that bottom line number. I'll turn it over to Mr. Osmani to provide more details in terms of where we are in the process and the work that's happened thus far.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, board members. As you know, we've had this conversation multiple times and we knew that going into this year, it will be challenging. Going in, as the superintendent mentioned, there are a number of other factors that are at play, including taxation and how the property revaluation came in this year. So we knew that this would be challenging, reconciling the budget. So we brought the board approved a budget of 9.7%, which that budget assured us the opportunity to continue the programming that we have at the current levels. We had costed it up. We had made some reductions getting to that 9.7%. As you recall, we came to you with some central office reduction that we began with on the offset. It was a net about 14 positions net. We eliminated 21. We reorganized 7 of them. So for a net impact of 14 positions to get us to that 9.7%. So that was the starting point, but we knew that this was going to be challenging. And as the superintendent mentioned, I do want to thank this year, we had a lot of engagement from the parents. And so the parents really showed up in support of the budget throughout the process, whether it was the SGC meetings, the joint meetings. And so we had tremendous support from the parents and we're happy for that. And we hope that you'll continue to be there with us as we move forward. So how did we get to where we are? So in building the budget, the starting point was, submitting the budget 9.7%. It went through the process and we were notified that the mayor recommended 4% and the cap was set at that 4%. And now the budget goes to the BET. The way that the budget process works within the district is after we submit that initial budget proposal that you approve, we then have what we call school-based budget or student-based budgets, SBB for shorts, where we now then sit down with our schools individually and start looking at how their budgets are built. Given the challenges of this year, how we started that process was we began by looking at how do their budgets look now with the current staffing at existing funding level. So the first thing we did was we sent out the staffing rosters. Please confirm that these are the people that are in your building that continue to provide what we're providing today. With that information, we took that information and said, all right, if we are to fund the schools fully at this level, how much would it cost for FY26? We adjust for salaries, we adjust for the things that we know, right? We adjust for salaries, we adjust for utilities, we have contracts, whether they're custodial, security. So you plug in all of those adjustments that you know, And then you build, what would this budget look like if we were to be fully funded? So that was our starting point. That fully funded budget is based upon their school enrollment and the programming that they have, any specialized services, IB program, the arts, and all of those things. So we looked at all that, then we built that budget. So then the next part now is, okay, this is what would cost to fully fund the budget, but we're at 4%. And so how do we get from the 4% to the 9.7 to the 4%? So using that information, we built a scenario where what would it take to balance a budget at the 4% request after all of these reductions and all of these other things that we know. So that's how these targets were determined. It was basically a ratio of what the current budget is at the current levels to determine what that target is. And so as you would imagine, most of the elementary school budget, because they're somewhat similar, they were within the same area of reductions. And then it's slightly more for the middle schools, and then it's slightly more for the high schools just because of the nature of the programming. The enrollment numbers, high schools have bigger budgets, and therefore any target at the high school level would be larger than an elementary school, as an example. So that's how we built those budgets. We knew it would not be easy. So the superintendent, I believe one of the first things that she mentioned is we need to try as hard to keep the instructional cores, right? So if you're a theater art school, how can we maintain those arts and those types of things, themes? Working directly with the directors of leadership development, before having these school-based budgets conversations with principals, we've had a number of meetings. We refer to them as pre-SBBs. And this is just an opportunity where the principal, finance staff members, an executive leadership, the respective leadership director, sit down directly with the principal. Some of these meetings happen at the school. Some of these principals happen online. But just to kind of begin to look at, what are some of these changes? How would this impact your school? So we've had a number of these pre-meetings. With some principals, we've had as many as 3 or 4 before the actual school base, because we're really trying to get to a point where we have numbers that are realistic. In addition to that, our principals and assistant principals have professional development once a month for a full day. I believe since December, at those principals meeting, we have designated about 30 to 45 minutes where we provide information on the budget, where we are with the budget, where it is in the process, what are we looking at, and kind of talking about having conversations about where are we going, because this is challenging for everyone. And I think I shared this with the principals. Not only is it hard at the school level, but it's also hard on the finance team and staff and everybody else that's involved. Because as you know, these are programs that we've worked hard to build. We've seen successes in them, and now to see that we are potentially forced to make changes that would impact this progress, it's not easy. It's tough to work at something that you've worked hard to build and see that you're having to make these adjustments. So that's what we've been doing. The other piece, and you give a shout out to Jay, the man who wears many hats. Jay and his grants team, Ms. Fedowes, Nina Laria, we're part of the grants team. What we've also been looking at when we're sitting with the schools is to see, are there other opportunities within the grants that could possibly provide some relief to the local funding? Now, that is somewhat tricky because, as you've heard, grants, and Ms. Fayos will talk more about these, grants don't allow us to supplant. That means if you're paying for something with tax dollars, you can't just say, oops, my tax dollars went away. I want to start paying grants for these programs. You have to strategically look at, are there any new initiatives that the school is offering, and how can we make it work on the grant side? Could we get audited on a grants annual basis? So these are conversations that are happening between the finance team, the leadership development team, the grants team, and the school principals. And so we have been working together from the moment that the board approved the 9.7%, just try to figure things out. So that's kind of how the process has been ongoing. But now we are where we are. We're going to the BET, the superintendent mentioned, on Thursday. Right now, we're sitting at a 4% rate, which is what the cap was set. We're hoping it stays that way. We know that we were here last year 4%. The BET came back at 3%. And so we're hoping that we will continue to have these conversations with the city on that. So as
And I
far
think one thing I want to interject, so for Thursday's meeting, not tomorrow. One of the things that we're hoping to do and kind of bring across to the Board of Estimate and Taxation is the fact that we're having a really hard time getting to that 4% without dismantling important and critical programs for the school system at large, particularly having detrimental impacts to programs for children. So we're going to emphasize that 4% is not enough. Because right now we're having a really hard time getting to that number. And we're gonna try to advocate for more. Even though our historical data doesn't show promising results, we have an obligation to still, until the last minute, keep pushing. So I really encourage our families, if they're tuned in, and those that are here, to really engage in the public comment component of the BET meetings, because I think it's critical for them to continue to hear our voices and the importance of maintaining the amazing programs that many of the people here today articulated. Sorry for that interruption, but I think it's important to highlight that.
Yes, thank you for that. And BET will be holding a public hearing, I believe it's 26th. Next week, thank you. And so that is an opportunity for the public to engage with the BET before they make their formal information. And then obviously the superintendent mentioned, we know that our budget, 85% is personnel, and this process will involve positions. Ms. Kimberly, Carolina Bird is here, Carolina is here, Director and Executive Director of HR. She has already started working with union leaders in looking at seniority lists and job descriptions and all of those things that are going to require to happen within this process. And so I believe that the leadership team, superintendent's cabinet, has started working in this process with everyone involved in making sure that no one is left behind throughout this process.
And just to reiterate, again, thank you for the cabinet and the executive leadership for all the work, and your finance team, Linda. I know you guys have been working around the clock to build the best possible process to get to this target. The cabinet has agreed to remain flat for the upcoming fiscal year in terms of their salaries, including myself. Every little bit counts. And I think it's important to note that. I really appreciate what the cabinet deciding as a collective and agreeing to my suggestion of all of us remaining flat, because every little bit counts. So thank you for all of you for that. As you guys continue also to navigate really complex portfolios of work. I just thought it was important to note that as well. And now moving on to.
Sure. So just before we get to the grants, just so as you know, our total budget is funded by three major pieces: the local budget, the grant budget, and then the food services fund, which we will talk about at another meeting. But as the superintendent mentioned, that piece of the pie that is grants has been shrinking. You know, it was at one point was as high as 30%. When we had the ESSER dollars, those ESSER dollars have gone away. And so it is a smaller portion of that. And so that also adds to the complexity of this year's budget, because not only are the local dollars not available to the level that we would like, but also the grant dollars that we would hope in the past have kind of helped us have also been shrinking. And so with that, I'd like to invite Deputy Superintendent Fayolas to kind of talk briefly about the grants and what's involved. As far as the grants are concerned, we've been working together with her team. There's some supplanting clauses. There's some issues happening you may have heard at the federal level related to grants. There's some things that have happened at the state level, and we'd just like an opportunity to give you that update as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Asmani. Thank you, Dr. Estrella and board. So the
I think this is still your
This is my slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just to show you.
We actually practiced.
We did practice. So leading to the grant discussion is that you'll see like how our staffing is distributed. And this is a slide you've seen before. Obviously, most of our staff are in elementary school, which is what you would expect. And you kind of see that downward bell curve all the way down. And so that is true for the staffing distribution that's funded with local dollars as well as the staffing distribution that's funded by grant dollars. And now to the deputies.
Thank you. The important thing to know and the correlation between the two slides, it's for us to actually show you that in both the general fund and in the grant funds, the bulk of them are made up by salaries. And this will actually address some of why the schools are feeling the impact that they're feeling. There are currently 200 FTEs in grants, 155 of those are school facing. The other remaining are in service of schools. And so then when we have grants that disappear, inevitably, the schools will also feel the impact of those grants disappearing. So if you see, I don't know if you could see that number, but you have the slides in front of you. So 72% of the grant is salary. And what happens is, for instance, if we have more grants that are available, these grants also have these tricky like non-supplanting clauses. And what that means is that grants are meant to supplement, not to replace. So the law states it very clearly that you cannot replace something that was previously funded by a different source or could be funded by a different source, and you can't just add that into a grant. Now, there are things that we can do. For instance, if there are new programs that are coming on or programs that were in grants that have sunset, we could bring that into a different grant. Like you can actually shift from grant to grant, and you can actually then start to think about like, if we were to redesign something, could you redesign it so that grants can support that? Dr. Estrella has been very, very forward with us and thinking about the grant funds that are available for next year and additional funding, and how is it that we can actually alleviate the impact at the school level. So there's been, and I think you'll speak to this later, there have been some mentions of additional education cost sharing dollars that may be coming to us and all of those. So we would have an opportunity to look at how is it that we could alleviate some of that impact on schools. But again, going back to where we were during those ESSER days, where grants were 30% of our budget. If you go back prior to COVID, it was more like this. It was about 10% of our budget were made up of grants. It's still a really large number. And there's all of these rules that go along with grants, like grants are meant to provide professional learning. So we have great opportunities like Jay just spoke about, where we have professional learning that's at no cost to us. But then there's other professional learning that in order for you to meet the guidelines of the grant, you actually have to demonstrate that there is staff training that is happening, that we are actually building in whatever the learning has to be to make sure that the strategy that you're saying or that the goal that you have laid out in your grant has a plan. Like you have to have an action plan for it. And then the piece that nobody likes is that you are expected to assume that as part of your operating budget at some point through the life of the grant. So there's these tricky pieces that are happening with grants. And as grants are in flux, like when we talk about the national scene, I just wanted you to see that the salaries of everybody that's within those grants would be obviously very vulnerable.
And I have to say, like, when you look at them, at one point, Wolf Pit, when they were very small, we were covering, they added the new dance teacher because it was a new initiative into the school. We used grant dollars to be able to sustain the program and to start building the program. Rhoton, because they're one of our smaller middle schools, have always had a challenge of maintaining their programming structure. So we've utilized grants to maintain the programs and maintain the operation of the school in a manner that is efficient. Another school is Merrimack. It's very small. They sometimes struggle in maintaining their programming structure. So they're building their IB, so some, their IB costs are sometimes covered by, grants. And across the district, some of our pathway work is grant funded in certain particular instances. So every opportunity that we have, we always make a concerted effort where the grant allows to make sure that the resources are being used in student facing experiences and personnel. So this is something we will continue to do as long as these grants continue to be available to us. Our biggest concern right now is the uncertainty of these state and federal grants that have been consistent over the course of the past several years. But we don't know yet what the future of these dollars will be. I think coupled with that, like I believe it was last year, we started seeing a reduction in Title I. Every year you would see an increase that was in alignment with I would say inflation. But for the first time last year, we were pretty flat and we were quite surprised about that. So we are monitoring this carefully because over time, obviously, it has implications in how we continue to support programs across the organization that have been funded through these additional dollars.
And what does the line at the bottom mean? Excludes out of district school readiness grants?
So the school readiness grants are funds that are given to us. Because we are the LEA, the local education agency for our private schools and also for our preschools. There are grants that come through us that if you were to just pull like a newness report or a financial report, there would be funds in there that don't actually belong to us. And one of them is the school readiness. Those school readiness actually go to our preschool providers. The private schools funds come through us, All Saints funding comes through us, the grant funding. We then distribute it to them, but it comes already delineated as to what is theirs versus what is ours. But so this here just says excludes the school readiness grants because prior to that, the school readiness grants used to be funneled through us. And I think now they're actually going to be funneled directly to the provider.
Beginning
Beginning next
July
year.
1.
Any other questions regarding what you see in terms of the pie chart or any other grant wondering?
Not wondering, but also for parents and the public to know that professional development isn't just stuff. I mean, there's professional development that is required also for the board, or even the interview process. Janine and I were in an interview process just from the grant holder to make sure that we were following the protocols. And, you know, that was very detailed. It was about an hour and it was question after question. And those are requirements of grants also. So that is something. And then there is another grant too that is in the school system. And they required a staff member to be chosen to be head of that grant. So there's just a lot of working pieces in these grants. So it's not just, here's your check, it's here's your check, but you have to do this.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And there's strong oversight also because we're an alliance district and we receive alliance funding. There's a lot of oversight where we have to do a lot of reporting. And then there's the yearly audits that we have for that we have to be audited on all our finances.
And we just had an alliance audit,
correct.
I think a week and a half ago.
Where we report like all the updates, how you are managing towards their goals, what sort of PD have you had? You actually have to put down the dates of the PD. We have to collect like the attendees. I'm looking at there's $4 million difference from 25 to 2026. And could you speak to that? What kind of grants
Have sunset, yes.
The biggest one there is this, the school readiness grant. That was $5 million that came to us directly. Now it's not going through us. So a big chunk of that is that loss of that school readiness.
All right, so that was not,
Yes.
then that doesn't change.
Yeah, there are some that have sunset, and I think we shared with you in terms of grants that were expiring in the spring. They're not here, but it's part of a different presentation that we did at another point. One was the behavioral health grant is expiring this year. That one was for $900,000. The high dosage tutoring is also expiring for $278,000. The right to read grant is expiring. That's $461,000. The dual credit expansion grant is $90,000. The IDEA Part B is $45,000. The Faith Acts grant, which is a residual of our ARPA funds, that one is $691,000. That one is deceiving because it's called Faith Acts, but it has nothing to do with faith. It actually was school safety. But we had to absorb those. So some of the things we had to absorb because we added the middle school, the additional guards at the middle schools. So we've had to absorb that. So that sometimes when these expire, it becomes a driver in our budget requests because we want to maintain certain structures. And because we made a commitment that we would continue to maintain those structures in order to get the funding. So
if I could just
sure. There's just one more. The Stronger Connection grant, which is $414,000, is also expiring.
If I could add, even though we don't call it a grant, the mayor's $2 million additional
That also
funding
expired.
That we received last year. It was a one-time allocation. Also, it's not reoccurring and also has an impact in our budget request.
Exactly. What pops out to me is that high dosage tutoring. I know that is part of our WIN program, helping the kids every day. What I need, and we just have absorbed that. Is that?
So the WIN program is within the day, and the WIN program is actually managed at the school. This high dosage tutoring was in addition to that. Yes, so the high dosage, so the WIN program is actually part of our SRBI process where students actually get matched according to their needs. And that program is not impacted by the sunsetting of this.
So this was after school.
Yes.
That's a good clarification.
Is in prior years though, with the out of district, the school readiness grants, was that part of money? Was that on our?
Yeah.
And so now that that's gone, so that will affect our bottom line. And I'm wondering, do we get like a fee for that? Because you basically were administering money for other districts, so they didn't give you, okay.
We don't, the local, the LEA is just expected to do that because that's who has the direct, it's like a fund, it's like a funding source and we get it through that account, for lack of better words. And so then it gets placed into our account and then we actually manage that. That's the other thing too, is we manage all their expenses.
Yeah.
We manage their purchasing, we manage their, so we manage their paperwork on behalf of them for that money. So when you see like Jay and Nina are the only two people that are managing grants, the grants go beyond us. It's all the private schools in the area, the parochial schools in the area, and then all of the preschools.
That's good to know, because I'm sure that's not widely known that you do that. That's.
Yes.
But we also cover costs for transportation,
nursing,
there's a lot for charter.
Yeah.
And food. Yeah. That is a cost that we incur that doesn't necessarily go to our schools.
So that's all things, and then the other school.
So
Regis Patch.
Side by side.
So as far as the readiness out of district, the overall piece that I think I asked this question for in reference to the out of district costs, because we are paying a big amount of out of district students that's going to programs out of district. That impact, what can we do as far as looking into that, as far as saving those dollars compared to us paying that a big amount for out of district, because we're paying a hefty amount.
Let me provide just a point of clarification. This school readiness it's out of district, but they're inside Norwalk, and those are our pre-K providers. I think what you're referring to, Mr. White, is the special education out of
Exactly.
district that we end up paying a fee for.
Right.
And, Mr. Pennington, do you want to address?
So one of the things that we have done, and you can come forward to just further expand. What we have done is build programs in district where we provide the services for our students within the district, and we've saved millions of dollars by doing that. Yet we still have students that are outplaced. We have been having conversations at the state level with our legislative officials about the fact that there needs to be some standardization set forward for these private institutions, because the rising costs are hard for us to maintain and also maintain the programs that we have in schools. So there's been conversation about that. I don't know if it's going to manifest itself in anything that will change. Our biggest leverage is really what we've been doing, which is building in our in-house programs that provide the same service at a reduced cost. And we've been really successful of doing that. And we basically have diminished the population in half by bringing programs in-house. And over time, as the programs continue to grow, because some of these programs are not yet fully developed, once they are, I think our numbers will continue our outplacement numbers will continue to be reduced. And that cost, our goal is to be further minimized, because we don't control what they charge. I'm sorry.
Right, so, sorry. So to hear that, and that's good information to have, what impact will that have with those fundings going into 26? Would those programs also possibility being hit?
So by law, we have to maintain those programs. So as we are looking at reductions, we are making sure that the integrity of those programs are maintained, because we are regulated by federal and state law to maintain our special education programs.
And if we were to close those programs, our out of district costs will
go out.
So
And it will be more
that's the
expensive.
the other layer. I think as we continue to develop and build programs, it will over time lower our number of out of district students going out. I do think once a student does go out, we are always working to try and is there an opportunity to bring the student back, but I do think that it's more of a challenge. So it's more of a long-term strategic plan. Another area that we are looking is talking with some of our RESCs like CES and ACEs to maybe collaboratively work together about developing something in district in Norwalk that could be
Bring in
for our
revenue.
students and also can bring in some other students as well.
It's important to note though that our number of out of district placed students has reduced. The cost has increased, so it doesn't show like it's been a reduction because the escalation in cost doesn't actually support like that the number has been reduced, but the number has been reduced.
And we will be paying that exponentially more if we had not made.
We had some good graphics on it before that we could provide. Yeah.
We have, a perfect example is one of our out of district programs cost $110,000 for a student to go just 3 years ago. It's now up to $165,000. And so that just goes over 3 years, going up $50,000 costs. So.
And this is not something just for Norwalk, this is statewide, this is national. And I just would like to say a positive thing about our legislators. Just in this last month, they voted to have an infusion this year for exactly that, this very specific outplacement students. And they distributed $40 million, which for us, I think came out to be
so
$800,000.
It is about $800,000.
And so we want to thank them for being aware of what struggles we're going through, our Norwalk delegation really fought for that, including Bob Duff and that group. I'm very thankful for that, but the sense I have is we're not alone in this. We're handling it really well, but it's a serious problem for all those that are educating young people.
And I'm having conversations with with my colleagues. This is a statewide problem. And like you said, like I had a number of conversations with legislative officials. Bob Dove was instrumental in helping us in securing those dollars because even coming into this year, we came in order to be able to maintain our staff at a deficit in special education. And that $800,000 is helping us balance that portion of the budget, which is very helpful to get it now and not having to wait to 2027 because the state budget operates on a very different fiscal calendar from our local municipality. So we're hoping.
The only other piece that I.
Next budget. So
that is it. That's our hope.
I just want to add one last piece and then, yes, we're constantly looking at our out of district costs and programs and how do we continue to develop programs. But there have also been things that have been passed. We service students 18 to 21. It used to go until the day before their 22nd birthday. It's now extended until the end of that year. And so in 1 year, just for us, that had an increase of $700,000 in service. One of the challenges is that we can't really use IDEA funds for that because it only goes until the day before their 22nd birthday. And so anyone who's getting supports after they turn 22, it does create that a little bit of a challenge.
And we've talked about this a lot. It's like the budgeting for specialized services, it's a moving target because really it's not something that's really fixed. You're always kind of making a guess based on.
Yes.
Right. So it's
the need and whoever, and that's ever evolving depending on
what students
what the students.
That's right.
And what the student may need at a certain point.
I have a question going back to some of the private institutions within Norwalk that we fund things like transportation, I think you said nurses. Do we receive anything back from them to offset that?
No. That's also legally we're mandated. Yes.
Mandate.
One of those unfunded mandates.
One of the many.
Any other questions on grant?
Thank you, Lauren.
You had something that
I did, but I think the conversation covered this slide. But it was really just focusing on the fact that there was a task force study on special education that just concluded their work. And one of their findings was they really took time to study special education. Several things that we're just talking about. Things they identified were obviously staffing shortages. There were funding inequities, like lower income districts still have to fund at the same level. And so those were some of the things that came out. And then they also looked at the achievement gaps that aren't really being addressed with respect to special education. And so that was some of the things that prompted like the $40 million that the governor approved in excess cost reimbursements, which we are fortunate to be getting this year. But in the governor's proposal, he does also include funding for special education FY26. The General Assembly actually has funding. Governor is FY27. The General Assembly in their proposal has some FY26 additional funding. So we'll know by April or May how much would actually be FY27, but there still is the possibility that there are some FY26 funding that will come our way once the two bodies reconcile the budget. And so we're continuing to monitor that. And then obviously we talked about some of the federal, and there's a typo, the federal executive orders that are coming through. Of the 30 million, I think we looked last time, we have two major grants that come to us directly from the federal government is the Magnet School Assistance Program. That's that $15 million grant. And then our Marine Science grant. That is one that comes directly to us, not through the state. And so when we were looking at that executive order, those were the two that were like highest on the list of potential reductions. The rest, because they come through the state, there is some buffer, but it's still not guaranteed. So we're still monitoring that, and as Ms. Flores mentioned, just the pool of grants that are available to apply for
Yeah.
has greatly been reduced. And so that also adds to the challenges in the grant world as well. Is that. And then just the final slide is just kind of recapping where we are. This is showing the phases of the budget. We are, mayor recommended 4%, common council approved that cap. And right now we're waiting on the BET and the BOE to do that final approval. When we were here last year, we were at that 4%, but as you know, the BET lowered it to 3%, so anything can still happen. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you have with respect.
So the way I understand it, you guys are working with the building principals to make determinations about cuts, right? But they are the ones who make the determinations based on what their building needs, maybe, right? Is that how it works with, under your watchful eye? You kind of talk about what the needs are and then they make the determinations that they need to make based on their building needs, is that correct?
Correct. So they're looking at that. Now, obviously, there are constraints, right? Because there are, they have a budget goal to achieve, and sometimes you're not necessarily able to achieve that target without having some of those impacts. But yes, we are working directly with the schools. We're listening to the recommendations. Oh, can I do this? So let's see, let's talk to the grant team. Yes, you can. Well, maybe this can, what about this? So those are the types of conversations that are happening now between finance.
Is there a deadline as to when this has to be done?
So we have schedules with all the, I believe our last meeting is March 27th or March 28th. Thereabouts, but then, we know that the BET is gonna be taking action, and then the BOE is gonna be, the council is gonna also be taking action. But our goal is to be done with the conversations with the schools by the end of March. And then after that conversation is completed, and we have these situations not resolved, but we know what's going to change, then at that point, we start working with the unions, because this is a decision. Many of these decisions are driven by the collective bargaining agreement. You look at seniority list, you look at bumping rights, each union is different. And so the next phase is then HR, finance, working with the union leaders and the school principal to see what can be done. And then once that's determined is then the process of notifications to those individuals impacted.
Have you gotten all of the buildings proposed reconciliations, or are there any outstanding, or have you got them all?
It's ongoing.
No, it's ongoing because we haven't completed all the meetings. We won't know until the end of March.
And I think it's important to know that depending where the BET finalizes their number, as well as then the council will engage in the final approval. We are hoping that we don't my hope is we get more, not less. So we're gonna try to advocate to get more than 4%. Because part of our argument with them on Thursday is going to be that it's been very, very challenging to get to that 4%, particularly for the large comprehensive high schools. And I hope that it motivates them to be a little bit more generous than they are right now with the 4%, to help us mitigate some of that challenge.
And I know it's been a challenge because I've asked you so many times, and we've talked about this during our finance committee meetings. I've talked about sharpening the pencil. You talked about the eliminations that you made in central office. I mean, are there any other savings that we can realize anywhere? It seems like you've pretty much exhausted.
We'll keep looking. We heard, well, there's two big items that we just found out. Health insurance is a big factor. Employee benefits are about 15% or so of our overall budget. We got numbers from the state. We had estimated 10% and they came in at 11%. So we have to go back and recalculate our benefits. So that's moving in the other direction of what we're doing now. Our biggest health insurance group are the teachers union with Cigna. We have not heard back from Cigna. Last year, Cigna went up 15%, which was the cap that we had when we negotiated the contract. That was year one. Year two doesn't have a cap. And so we're at their mercy in terms of where that comes in. So with the state coming in at 11%, I'm nervous about if Cigna will come in because last year the state came in at 2% and Cigna came in at 15%. So I don't know where Cigna will come in this year, but last year, at least we had the cap that would protect us. We have no cap this year. And so that's a big unknown because that is a big chunk of our budget this coming year. So
Can you clarify, will you be meeting, like, the March 27th date? Is that when everything needs to be handed in and done? Or when is the last day that you have met at least once with every single school?
March 28th, I believe, is the last meeting when we should be done. Historically, we may have a couple of odd ends that we need to discuss. We need to finish up, so we usually add maybe 3 or 4 days after that. But by first week of April, definitely we need to have all of these things resolved and have a plan.
When would you have met with every single school with an initial?
March 27th, I believe, is when we will have had formal meetings with every single school.
Just to be clear, there's been informal meetings with all of the.
Yes, we've had 3 meetings with every
So
single.
Because
all
it
of the
sounds like
schools-
you haven't, so when
No.
you have.
We've had,
And that was my.
that's why I reiterated of the important work that Mary Ann and Allison have done. Because they engaged in the pre-SVB meetings with all of the schools already. And I think in some cases, multiple meetings, not just one meeting, but with schools that needed additional support. And now the finance team alongside, it's a big cohort of people that embrace in this work. They've been meeting in the formal school-based budgeting meeting in an ongoing basis for the past 2 weeks now. And those would be concluded by March.
Those would be concluded by March.
Which is earlier than we have done in the past. We have started this process earlier because of the complexity of this year's budget process. And we want to make sure that the finance team alongside HR and the bargaining groups have enough time to sit down, review the list. I know that Kimberly has already started that work of providing the list, or like is in the process of providing those lists to the bargaining groups for review to make sure that the seniority order is in place and that we are ready to have those conversations when we have a definite number that we're proceeding forward with.
So I just want to get this straight, because I just think this is a very important piece. I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So as far as the schools are concerned, it is the school's responsibility to handle the budget part of it first and then bring that to the cabinet?
No, so the way these work is we sit together, right? So the principal, the director of school leadership in those pre-meetings, they look at we look at the staffing, we look at the class sizes and they're like, okay, here's the target. What can you do? Oh, I would like to do X. So then the conversation will be, okay, well, to do X, as an example, to do X requires something to happen at this other school, for example. And therefore, let's first talk to this other school and see if that's possible, is that doable? Or to do X requires will you be able to perform the functions that are necessary with the remaining staff? Are they certified or licensed to do these work if this person is no longer in that role? So it's a back and forth. There are proposals and then there are conversations that go. So there's no definite yes and no to that, if that makes sense. But it's ongoing because there are multiple factors that are involved in that as well. There's some union contract as well. If you don't do this, if you're left with only this person who's going to do this work, but looking at the union contract, this position cannot do this. And therefore you can't necessarily, let's come up with a plan B or so. So there are some multiple things that come into play and we work together. We look at contracts, we look at the strategic plan and see what's possible and what's not.
But we do listen to the individual schools.
Oh, absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
what their importance is on their end too.
All right. I don't know
The principal
if Mary Ann and
meeting-
anyone of you would like to add to anything. Okay.
And also the principals also have had the opportunities to engage their SGCs. I know that many of the principals have been talking about the budget and looking at the reductions, also getting some insight from their SGCs in terms of their thoughts, around the budget.
So when it comes to final cutting, when it comes to cutting from student programs, those decisions are made by who?
The decisions are made right now, the way that we're working with the schools, because we want to make sure that the priorities that are being set are in alignment with either the pathway, the focus areas of the schools are being made by the school leader alongside conversations with their SGCs. Unlike in the past, I think there were cuts being made unilaterally without thinking about this school has this specialization, the school has this focus. We didn't want to take that approach. We really wanted to make sure that the principal was part of the decision-making process. Inevitably, there are reductions that need to be made, and we wanted principals to have an active voice in that process.
Okay.
If there was a decision that we felt would poorly impact the instructional program, then we would obviously push back around that. But the principals are working with their SGCs and making these tough recommendations of what should be needed.
Thank you.
My fear right now is historically getting a lower number. You know, we've been up, clocking and not sleeping at 4%. The thought of it being lower than that is just mind blowing.
It will be very challenging because as I said, right now, we're having a really hard time balancing the budget and not detrimentally impacting programs, particularly when we look at the large comprehensive high school. So I would like to reiterate the importance of giving us a little bit more than 4% at a minimum, so that the impact in our high schools is not as devastating as it looks right now. Because we have the potential of having to shut down critical programs that we've worked really hard to build. And we look at our track record. I mean, I heard we had conversations because I meet with an SGC group, SGC and PTA leadership group before every board meeting, because I like to hear from parents what's coming up for them. And I've had 2 this month and 1 last month, and what keeps resonating is the importance of building that pathway over time so that we maintain the level of excellence that we have achieved over the years. I mean, Norwalk has been known for its arts, its music program. Norwalk High School was just, Dr. Moore, what is the award that the band just, what level did they get elevated to?
Percussion is now world class.
World class. And we are the only one in the state of Connecticut. Brian McMahon also went up a level in their band. And I mean, like, our staff is doing phenomenal things. And to think of the fact that we might have to disrupt the amazing work that is happening and to add to our staff more burden by increasing class sizes and the inevitable shifting that will happen as a result of these reductions is mind-blowing and very sad. So I hope that when we engage the BET, they understand the impact of what's happening. And do you have any final points?
No, this was.
I think I should.
Can people make public comment at this week's BET meeting, or they can't?
No.
Until the public
That's
hearing?
a public hearing.
The public hearings. We will be presenting our case on Thursday, and then there's public comment the following week.
Now, I also want to thank my colleagues that have spoken up at public comments. I know it's been very difficult for everybody, and the individual conversations, Common Council and BET members. Thank you for that. You know, I do see it, we all see it, we're all on the same page, trying to keep the kids at the forefront. But yeah.
And that concludes the superintendent report. I hope this update provides more context for the board, where we are, the countless hours that the team has been making. I just want to also give a special kudos to the communications team. During the workshop, I didn't mention them, and that was my fault, because one of the things that the board 2 years ago had asked, I think Colin and Diana are like two people that were there when you spoke about communication needing to improve across the district. And the communication team has worked tirelessly in enhancing how we communicate across the district. Even at my conversation earlier with parents, they were talking about Parent Square and different tools and how the schools have been so informative. And not only do I give special kudos to our school staff and our principals and assistant principals for making that happen, but also our communications team, even with the budget process, creating links and putting all the resources for public viewing, and just reframing communication across the organization has been key. A lot of the concerns that were brought up in the past, I haven't heard at all, because they make a really concerted effort to keep people informed and engaged about what's happening, but also celebrating the greatness that's happening across the district. Because I think it's important, as families come to our community and learn about our schools, that they have access to resources that showcase the amazing things that are happening. I almost wanted to record Wolf Pit earlier during my one-on-one with them, as they spoke about Wolf Pit, because it just spoke to the amazing things that are happening across our district, and the greatness that lives inside our school buildings. Even though our facilities need improvement, like Wolf Pit articulated, but just the love and the heart inside our schools just speaks volume. And with that, I conclude my superintendent report.
Thank you. Okay, so we are at the action consent section of the agenda. This is where we can vote on multiple items at once. Before I ask for a motion, is there any changes or updates on the minutes? Corrections? Okay. I need a motion for approval of personnel and approval of minutes. Kara, seconded by Howard. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hands. Aye. Unanimous, thank you. Next item, this is the approval to execute a 3-year successor contract with Durham Transportation Services. I believe there's a discussion on this.
Yes.
So at the end of this school year, June 30, our 5-year contract with Durham School Services will expire. When we wrote the specs for this RFP back in 2019, prior to COVID, we did look at greener transportation. So we knew we were going to go in with a new fleet of propane buses. To be able to allow the contractor to amortize the cost of those buses, which it's a much, much more expensive for propane buses than it is diesel. And so to be able to allow them to amortize that over time, we wrote this language into the contract where we would give them the opportunity to have the 3-year successor contract. So in your packets, in the presentation, you'll see there's some raw data for you that we've done across the 10 districts that are within this lower Fairfield County. You can see the contract comparisons, the daily rates,
contract terms. There's also information in there regarding the driver rates. That information is available for you to just read through. As far as, there's a question that came up earlier is, why did we not go out to bid for this? Because of the fact that we knew going back to 2019 that this would be a possibility where we would want to extend that contract for the amortization of the vehicles. Also, in our current situation with the economy, with our budget, with our financial future, it is not advantageous for us to go out to bid. We are in a place where for next school year, Durham has come in at a 5% increase. They committed to that increase prior to us discussing a contract extension or a successor contract. They came in and partnered with us on that, knowing what our budget looks like for next year. That is going to allow us to increase driver rate, which will bring in drivers to be able to help us answer the driving that's still a national issue. And it's also going to help us to bring in an extra staff into the terminal. And also it is going to be solidifying our commitment and giving us that that budget, how would you say? Savings. Budget savings, but also some stability over the next 3 years so that we know what we're facing as we're facing these other budget woes.
I also think it's important to highlight that other places that have been, that have negotiated the contracts, new contracts have come in much higher than what Durham is providing us. And we don't want to be in a predicament where we go out to bid and then wind up having to pay more than what we're paying now. And when you look at our region, we are pretty economical compared to other districts in our area, even Stanford, which is the most, the one that we usually compare most to because of size, they are significantly higher than we are.
They also have our previous provider.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we're looking at, you know, if we did go out to bid, we'd be looking at anywhere between 9% to 26% increases. That's astronomical. Yeah, Fairfield just went for a 1-year extension with our previous vendor, and they were originally looking at a 40% increase, but we're able to negotiate 26%.
So the recommendation for us is for us to continue with the current contract and just add the extension. That's and all of this work has been done by Joanna to just show you that that's how we came to this recommendation.
Any questions from the board?
I was just gonna say, I appreciate you bringing the folks here from the bus company, because often I see the buses on the road and I wonder who are the people who are assisting you in making sure that our kids get around safely. And thank you for answering the question, because I was gonna ask about the bids, so that was wonderful. So this sounds like it's reasonable. We're getting a lot of benefit from this, and there's some potential cost savings. So I would be happy to.
I think there's also a lot to be said for continuity.
Yes.
Right, like we have I mean, from my perspective as a parent, like we have a pretty good thing going right now, and you're doing an amazing job, and so is Durham, and you know.
And if the board wants to schedule a visit to go see the depot, I usually visit my people then.
I will add that Durham is a fantastic partner. They came in COVID, so many challenges that we faced. And they really have been side by side with us. It is a team there. They came in the facilities, which we are in a 20-year lease with the property owner. They have a sublease. They came in, the facilities were not kept up. The previous vendor was in there from 1986, and they put $30,000 into the shop to bring it up to code and bring it up to their standards. And they believe in leaving it better than how they found it. And who wants to walk into somewhere that's old and dingy and, you know, the environment, and they've just, it's bright in there, it's beautiful, and it speaks volumes to who they are.
Well, similarly to the visits that we've scheduled with the board to go visit sites, school sites, and facilities, we could also set a visit so that you can see the depot. I mean, it's best to be there at 6 in the morning when they're leaving to be.
We don't want to be tone deaf and address the fact that there are still issues with the driver shortage.
Yeah.
So we currently have 4 routes that are open, but if in comparison to other districts, we've actually been able to bring on more drivers than, like I said, we compare ourselves a lot to Stanford, not just because Stanford's proximity, but also because that was our former provider. And I think they have now 9 routes that are open.
Stanford actually is covering 15 routes
15
on a
routes.
daily basis.
And that's what ends up, when you're covering routes, that ends up creating the lag and the delays. So there's a national challenge with drivers, because as you know, if you get Amazon packages, that people are hiring drivers. And so that competition is.
That's
right.
So the 4 open bus routes get absorbed into our other routes, which is what causes delays.
Well, they're required by contract to have a certain percentage of spare drivers. So we have 6 spare drivers right now, and they are actually covering those routes. So if we're fully staffed, we'll have people who are able to sit and be available in case there's any driver absences for, normal things, people who are sick, family members, deaths in the family, whatever might come up.
I was in the original conversations when we were looking at Durham, so to see how far they have all come, with NPS, and to know that everything that they said at that meeting is actually coming true. So I'm glad that I'm all for the extension.
We have those original bid numbers if you're ever interested in looking at them.
I remember.
Yeah.
And Mr. Schmuck has been with us since the beginning. So he came in on the transition and has really just been a support for the terminal. He oversees thousands. And he's a great support to us.
Any other questions from the board?
Just out of curiosity, do we know what percentage the contract in Trumbull went out?
Are they there?
Trumbull is there, but they're in their Durham as well. I don't have the actual because they extend their
extended.
contract. I'll just ask Steve, do you know what their increases are by any chance?
I think they're in a current contract with 4% increases year over year, I believe. But I don't know, like the last renewal, I don't recall what that went
We
up.
could get that too. You could try to find out.
And Trumbull is a district that every 5 years they go out to bid and they change the vendor every 5 years. And I think this is the first year, right, Steve? That they actually
extended.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I need a motion for approval to execute a 3-year successor contract with transportation services. Ashley, seconded by Jasmine, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to combine B and C. The approval of policy 5037 meal charging and approval of policy 5031 student nutrition and physical activity wellness. I will have Ralph set up for any questions.
We also have Jill on.
Hi, Jill. This is online.
Yeah. Jill, can you hear us okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I can. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. So, at our policy meeting, we presented 2 different, our wellness policy as well as a meal charging policy. And I can let Jill talk a little bit about why we need a meal charging policy in place, even though we currently don't charge for meals. And then as well, every year, Jill presents to the board our wellness policy and any updates that need to happen. So they're usually minor updates, but as I kind of mentioned, even in the policy meeting, when we talk about communication and really actually, having policy built from the ground up, the wellness policy is one perfect example of that, where she has community members involved. She has people from every building that she meets with on a regular basis throughout the year, involved with actually knowing what's going on, and they actually help to build whatever changes need to be made for that policy, for those policies. So Jill, if I could let you just talk a little bit about the meal charging policy first.
Sure. So the meal charging policy is definitely something the state requires us to have in place, even though we are a CEP district. So moving forward, the charging policy is basically stating once or if we do go back to meal applications, we needed to have a policy in place where students can charge their meals if they don't have funds, and we needed to have regulation behind that as to, or a policy behind that as to how many meals they're allowed and how often they can, how high of a charge they can go up. So this is stuff that we had to get into place so that if we do ever go back to using applications, this is already there, and we can issue that out to families so they're aware of our I guess our limits for how many meals can be charged.
Just for clarification, this is not a new policy. We had sunsetted it because of the free meals that we were having at schools. And this is just pulling it out and bringing it back up to, you know, getting all the verbiage done with any updates from the states, just in case. We're hoping we don't need it, but just in case we have to go back to charging the students for food.
But Diana, can you speak to what we were talking about recently as a board, that we will continue to feed our students regardless of what could potentially happen?
Yes, there was a question on if a child cannot afford lunch, child will not get a cheese sandwich like it was in past years. That was a conversation that was in policy committee right before COVID. We were discussing that. The child will have a choice of regular lunch.
Thanks, Jill. And then, like I said, Jill, if there's any highlights at all from the wellness policy, because basically with the wellness policy, nothing truly changed beyond some language updates. I don't know if there's any, Jill, that you felt like needed to be highlighted from those couple of changes.
Not too much. No, we, like you said, Ralph, we did just update some of the verbiage. There was a few changes to the physical activity that might be was a requirement. So we linked it to the physical activity policy, and a lot of links were added to highlight our smart balance, our smart meals, and our healthy foods initiative foods. So those were a few of the requirements that we had to have in there. Just so when we do share that wellness policy with our families, they can go to those links to see what we're obligated to serve.
And we also did align it with our fundraising regulation too.
Yes.
As well. So discuss what can, like the concession stands and other areas, just to make sure there's clarification.
Okay, so motion for approval of policy 5037 meal charging and approval of policy 5031 student nutrition and physical activity. So moved. Carrie, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor, please say aye. Raising your aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Sure.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. So we're
Thank
gonna move forward with the next three, and I will be reading a section that is required before we vote. So the next items on to voting is approval of healthy food option participation pursuant to 2025-26 healthy food certification. Approval of food exception pursuant to 2025-26 healthy food certification. And approval of beverage exemptions pursuant to 2025-26 healthy food certification. Pursuant to EGS section 10-22-215F, the Norwalk Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. Motion to approve. Howard, seconded by Janine. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hands. Aye. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Second vote. The Norwalk Public Schools Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. The sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of a regular school day or on weekends. The sale is at the location of the event. The food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, interscholastic debates, or events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be in the same place as the food sales. Motion to approve. Mary Ellen, seconded by Jasmine. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hands. Aye. Thank you. That's unanimous. Did approval of healthy food option participation pursuant 2025-26 healthy food certificate. Approval of food exception pursuant 2025-26 healthy food certification. Approval of beverages exemptions pursuant to 2025-26 healthy food certification. Last item on the agenda to vote is indoor air quality update and review in accordance with section 10-220 of the Connecticut General Statutes, CGS 10-220D.
We've already done this at Facilities Committee, and it's really that we have an obligation by the state to inform the board and our constituents that indoor air quality reviews were done at each school, that they have been published in our website, and that they could be found in each school's FAQs. And so there's no approval of it. It's really that we have an obligation to notify our board and notify the community. That's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next item of the agenda is monthly financial report. Girls, starting.
Colleagues behind me reminded me that they have homes, so make it quick. So I'll make it quick. You have the backup with you, but I just wanted to just talk about where we are year to date and just explain some of the drivers so far. I shared this with the finance committee when we met, I think it was last week. So I'll start with, I'll combine salaries and benefits. So salaries and benefits obviously are the largest component of our budget. We are right now, this is February, so we're 66%, just for reference, 66% of the year in, and salaries we spent about 60%, which is kind of where you would expect to be this time, this part of the year. It is, however, 5.9% higher than this period last year. Two main reasons for that. One is obviously salaries are different this year based on the community bargaining agreements. But the other thing that we're seeing, which is actually a positive thing, is that our rate of turnover is actually lower this year. So we have fewer vacancies this time of year compared to last year. So those two things are driving some of that, but that's why. But even with that, we're still within where we budgeted to be. Our benefits it shows we're 12% less than where we were this time last year. Part of that is, you recall that when we approved this budget this year, we had some additional surpluses in the health benefits fund, so we're not transferring as much this year. So this year's budget is actually less than last year. So we'll anticipate this number being smaller as well. The next one is professional and technical services. This one is actually right now, year over year, it's about 30% higher than where it was last year. But this year's budget is also a little bit higher than last year. Professional services include things like teacher substitute contracts, our security services are part of this grouping, our nurses temporary staffing is part of this. So these are all these services of our people services, but we contract out with. And so that's one of there. The other big one in this category is also our special education professional services. We have third-party vendors that provide like behavioral health supports for our students. So that's part of this as well. So this one is again 30% higher than last year, but it is 61% of year-to-date budget, which again is where you would expect us to be. The other student services, this is the big one. Right now, this is showing at 81% of budget compared to last year, but included in this one is what we just finished talking about, out of district tuition for special education. Student transportation is part of this, special education that we pay to other LEAs. And the reason that this is higher is because one, we've talked about, although the number of students that are going out of district has remained relatively flat, but the cost per student has seen an increase. We also know that at the beginning of the year, as the superintendent mentioned, we approved a budget that we knew was less so that we would minimize the staffing reduction we would have to make. The positive news here, as I mentioned before, because of that $40 million that we received, we will get that money this year, and so we will able to offset some of these expenses into that, and that is the excess cost grant. On the excess cost grant, we pay our primarily staff, as Deputy Superintendent Fayos mentioned, and therefore we will have an opportunity to offset some staffing costs related to other services into that excess cost grant. So that will mitigate some of those expenses. And then I think those were the ones that I wanted to highlight. Everything else, supplies and materials, equipment, those kind of speak to themselves. They're within where we anticipate to be this time of year. And then the last one is the transfer to the food services fund. We had budgeted to transfer $500,000. We haven't made that transfer yet. We will make that transfer at the end of the year. So right now it's showing 0% because we wait until the end of the year to know exactly how much to transfer, sorry. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have related to the financials.
That beat you up already, so we're good.
No, and thank you.
Thank you.
You know, and for the public, these are the more detailed discussions and questions are in the finance committee meetings, monthly meetings. But we have committee representative reports. As policy chair, I don't have any updates because we've already just discussed the meal charging and the student nutrition and physical activity. Any other committees?
We just had a meeting, so we just presented.
Oh, yes, so finance, the same. Any other committee meetings at the moment?
We had our specialized learning subcommittee meeting today, and we talked about ESY, or the extended school year.
the program, and it's for the IEP students that need the summer to maintain their progress and to prevent loss of skills. It's decided at their annual review on who needs to continue in this program, and the majority of students that are recommended for this program go through it. Their related services are determined based on student needs, are delivered on site, such as like OT and physical therapy and behavioral work as well. Do you guys have anything else to add? Today? It was a good meeting today. Yeah, information for us that we didn't know about really.
Packed a day for the kids and very exciting.
Yeah.
And it was our schedule.
Short day, last minute.
Maritime Center is part of it, which is wonderful, exciting.
Awesome.
I have a few quick library notes. As the library liaison, I think that during this time, there were some programs done with the schools, at Jefferson Night at the library and Fox Runs Literacy event. As well as going into schools and classrooms to read for Read Across America Day. Vicki Otis asked me to use this month to remind everyone that all students enrolled in Norwalk Public Schools have a student library card attached to their student ID number. This is only done here in Norwalk and Stamford, and we're very proud of this partnership. I have more information about how it works. If anyone is interested, I can send that out. And I can speak to it because my own child, we've got hers set up, connected to her school ID recently. That's very cool. Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah. Got it connected to her.
And if you want us to support with having the communications team put something on, we can always support.
Yeah, let me, I'll pass along the info sheet so that we can get that out to everyone. Yeah.
From an athletic standpoint, I would just like to give kudos to Brian McMahon High School. To the state semifinals last week. You know, they had a heartbreaking loss, but just kudos to a great season they had, and to Coach Fuller, who stepped in to also take an integral part in that. So I'd like to congratulate them.
Awesome. Okay, now we have board member announcements. This is a section where we can share anything personal or any events.
Want to give big ups to the communication department for the newsletter that they put out. I think I had mentioned that to Emily before, that I distribute that to my constituents, and I get such good feedback from people who like to read. I mean, people, they say, I read it. You know, there's so many things that they didn't know that were happening in the school district. So it makes it easy for me to be able to have that comprehensive piece and to send out, and people do enjoy reading it.
And the board updates is another one that you might
Absolutely.
want to
Yeah.
send, because it has a lot of detail.
Yeah.
I can back that out. I've spent some time listening to the interviews with the children, and I even heard an interview with our own Jasmine.
Oh, yes, that was good.
What was it, Lift Up? Something like that. Really incisive interviews of our local leaders. Good job, communications.
And see, that was something you could have shared, Jasmine. As she's sitting there quietly.
She's humble. I have a quick event to announce. I realize this is our last business meeting before a fundraiser that I help run as part of Norwalk Actions for Reproductive Justice. We're hosting a fundraiser for the Reach Fund on Friday, April 4th at the Blind Rhino. We call it Women's Basketball Night, and it's a celebration of women's sports. We watch the semifinals of the NCAA Women's Final Four and have a pretty sizable raffle to benefit the Reach Fund. It's a really, really fun night. Would love to see folks come out and join us.
We had a lot of fun last year.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
And I just want to announce that is that okay? May 17, we're gonna have our first book events, thanks to our philanthropic partners. So I want to give a special thank you to Hope Wyatt, who of NFPP, who has been big support and advocate in making first book possible. So kudos to NFPP in supporting that work. And we'll make sure that kids go home for the summer with books.
I've been working on the board with, just, you're doing it, for the celebration for Earth Day. It's gonna be April 26th, Saturday at the Green. And, high school kids are going to be working with some of my rowing, athletes. We're gonna be cleaning up the Norwalk River, the sides of the river. And there'll be tours of Wall Street, Maine, and then, of course, the event at the Green. So it's a morning until about 3 o'clock. So
What's the date again, Mary Ellen?
what the day is April 26th. That's not actually Earth Day, Earth
Yeah,
Day
that's
is
late.
maybe the 24th or so.
22nd.
22nd.
Is the 22nd.
22nd, but the Saturday after,
Okay.
so that it all
Yeah.
time. And the second group I'm involved with is the NICE Festival. They've had, this will be the 9th NICE Festival. And what is, that's not until July, but what I want to share with everyone is that it's going to be at a new time. It's going to be in October instead of July. We've had a series of Julys that have had incredible heat.
Yeah.
And then storms coming in, and we just said, let's give it a try, see if people respond to it. A day of dancing and folk dancing and great food, the NICE Festival. So that will be October 4th, the first weekend of October 4th.
A lot of great events coming along.
Oh, I have another event I can add. About it. Tomorrow is North High's annual dodgeball tournament. And I'm just learning that it's student led. So the students are all ready to have a great event there. And there's a lot of staff members and students and just other community members who have teams. It's $5 to get in, and there's a charity that is chosen, and it's called EJ's Heart. And that is another local nonprofit that does a lot of giving back to the Norwalk Public School students, whether it's through their exercise program or through their scholarship program. So that is tomorrow. I have a team at the tournament. And I'm excited to play dodgeball again. I think I haven't played since high school. But it should be fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited to support.
Can't wait to see
the
that video.
schools. The school. I'll be wearing blue. My team is in blue.
Fun.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that event, so it's tomorrow,
Yes.
I'm just gonna put the Dr. Estrella on the spot. Latin Colors Tomorrow has chosen Dr. Estrella to be the cover and article on her for the magazine. So we will be there to see the magazine and hear everything that you have to say, and kudos to you and all the hard work that you're doing for the district.
Thank you.
And the last item, I will be turning the meeting back to Dr. Estrella first.
Thank you. So the next agenda item relates to my recommendation that the board terminate the employment contract of a teacher in accordance with the Teacher Tenure Act. You will note that the agenda item states that executive session is anticipated. However, this is a simple matter and it will not be necessary for the board to convene in executive session. I recommend that the board terminate the contract of employment of Dr. Danita Coverson for the reasons stated in my letter to her dated October 11, 2024 under the Teacher Tenure Act. Teachers who receive notification that I am recommending termination of their contract may request a hearing within 10 days of such notification. However, Dr. Coverson failed to make a timely request for a hearing as required by the statute. And therefore, this recommendation is properly for you for action. This matter was previously on a board agenda, and at Dr. Coverson's request, I withdrew my recommendation at that time. However, it has not been possible since then to resolve this matter without board action. And I renew my request that the board accept my recommendation and terminate Dr. Cumberson's contract of employment as a teacher within the Norwalk Public Schools, again, for the reasons stated in my October 11, 2024 letter to Dr. Cumberson. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, why are you requesting to be terminated?
So I will issue the letter for your. Maybe.
A couple questions.
Mhm.
You know that the 10-day period to pursue a hearing passed, but did Dr. Cupson try to pursue a hearing beyond that 10-day period?
Can you repeat the question?
Was there any attempt to pursue a hearing even though the deadline had passed?
I'm trying to think back. I think that the last time when we had put it on the board agenda, and then it was asked to be taken off. I can't remember. I think her attorney may have said, you know, something to the effect of we'd like to request a hearing. And at that point, we said, well, it's too late. According to the statute, you had 10 days. And I think we actually waited longer than 10 days before we actually put it on for the agenda last November.
And has the NFT commented on this at all?
I'm sorry.
Has the NFT commented on this at all?
Do I have any other comments?
No, has the NFT, the union?
Oh, the union. Oh, she's represented by counsel.
Has everybody had an opportunity to read the letter?
Just about.
Okay.
Well, in regards to what is listed here as the code of ethics, and being that according to the code of ethics, this wasn't the first time that they were violated. Is that, more a part of the reason for termination being that it's.
All the
Like,
reasons
that's-
stipulated in the letter are the reasons for termination.
So there was no further discussion or conversation to try to come to a solution between her attorney and our attorney?
There were ongoing conversations to reach a resolution, and we were unable to. We've been engaging in dialogue back and forth for months
Since
now.
November.
Since November.
So you're asking us to make a decision on this?
I'm going to read the motion. So given the foregoing, I suggest the following motion for the board. Moved that the board hereby terminate the employment contract of Dr. Danita Coverson effective immediately, and further moved that the board directs the superintendent to notify Dr. Coverson of this action. So I turn it to you as the chair to set the motion for approval.
I need a motion on the recommendation, superintendent, that the board terminate Dr. Danita Coverson's contract. Collins, aye. Kara, all in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That is 8-1. Thank you.
You have to say what that was. The person denies or abstains.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I need any abstentions? Howard White. Thank you. Okay. And if there's no other questions, or that is the end of our agenda, I need a motion to adjourn. Jasmine, thank you. Seconded by Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening, and thank you for all the information.
Yeah. I know, I don't think it's something.